And we're live. Hello, Internet. We are sorry about the video issue. We are not actually having... we are not starting soon. We are starting now-ish. I mean, kind of. We're having some technical difficulties with the Internet and things happening. We're not experts. We're just a couple of guys that get together and drink and talk about shit. So that's what we're here to do. Anyways, shall we get to our, audio version theme song, Chris? As
Yes,
we're fixing
believe we
your
should.
stuff. All right, and I'm doing my stuff. And if you're joining us here on YouTube right now, then thank you for joining us on YouTube. And you are getting this content exclusively. This content of us just telling you that you're getting exclusive content, they don't get that over on Podbean or on Apple Podcasts. But if you'd like to not listen to that, you could also listen to us over there instead of over here. But you catch us live every Friday night here. So, if we're ready, we'll have our regular theme song. 3, 2, 1, go! Alright. I got a cool glass and everything. I got a cool bottle, and I can't show it as far as I can tell because we're having such issues with the thing. I mean, I guess if I had set up OBS entirely differently, I could probably actually take it directly from my webcam instead of from Discord like I usually do, which is easier because then I have an identical layout. Yeah. Hey, Bloink. Well, let's
Let
see.
me attempt to stream this thing.
Yeah, if this works, then we may or may not have something for you here. So let's see. Where the heck did I put Discord? Somehow it closed itself completely. That's odd. It's a good thing that closing itself completely doesn't shut it down. Alright.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
Alright. And I guess that was probably a really weird way to introduce ourselves to the audio version instead of the usual ubiquitous opening monologue. So, I actually have my notes open for once, though, so I can actually read it. Hello, Internet. My name is Spamoman. As always, your host of Drink to the Past, the only podcast where Chris a whole bottle of Coca-Cola. Also, share and subscribe and ring that bell to get notifications every Friday when we go live on YouTube. I am joined by co-host and or guests.
My new middle name has eaten my last name.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so real quick, I did want to plug our next upcoming couple of shows. So next week, we are going to be joined by @T-Crusading from Cobblepath Games. I don't know if they usually go by their screen name. I was talking to him earlier this week. Sounds like he's interested in tabletop design. He is one of the creative minds behind Heroes of Hyrule, which is a Zelda fan RPG. So that'll be really cool. We're going to talk about various design philosophies and stuff next week. And Chris is being a lame nerd and going to something else. That jerk.
Yeah.
Of all the episodes for you to miss, I feel like this is like the one that
I am sad to miss this particular episode.
Did you read through the Heroes of Hyrule at least?
I am missing it for a very good reason. I have not had time to look over it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I also have not, because I was thinking about it, and then one of my characters died in a campaign recently, so I've been spending most of today that I wasn't, out and about doing stuff. I was working on my new character, because level 13 Pathfinder builds can get time-consuming.
You lost last night. You lost that character last night?
Yes, I did lose him last night. So that was unfortunate happening. GL Emil H says, ahoy there. So, yeah, welcome to the live audience. We're always glad to have people telling us what to drink, or when to drink, which is always for us. Anyways. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, my character died, so I guess we'll get into what you're playing, as long as we are here. Real quick, I am going to try something. So here is our, oh yeah, I never got to fix that. So let me see. If I can get this to capture Discord correctly, then maybe we can see Chris's gameplay. But it doesn't seem so, so I'm just going to go back to what we were doing earlier. So, yes, we are here. We're not starting soon. We are started already. Sorry for the confusion. OBS is being a pain right now. But that's the life of a streamer, I think. And we're not even streamers. We're just some drunks.
I mean, I stream things. I guess that technically makes us streamers.
We make streams of pee 4 to 6 hours after the podcast.
Only 4 to 6 hours?
Depends on how thick the beer is that day, I suppose. Which today it's actually fairly thick, but we'll get into that in a second. Yeah, because I want to talk about my character, because we actually had a cool conversation about character deaths last week, and I thought it was kind of hilarious timing that we talked about character deaths, and then I had another character death the week following on my Thursday night campaign. So that was unfortunate timing, but it was a pretty cool death. I'm happy with it. So I was playing a cleric with the Elder Mythos Cultist template, whatever they call that in Pathfinder. They have like archetypes, I think.
Archetype.
Yeah. So the Elder Mythos Cultist was a really fun thing to build, and in action it played really, really well too, because it was kind of funny. Like the first time I was playing with the players, they were like, "Oh yeah, you're a cleric. That'll be great for our party dynamic," assuming I was, a Healy cleric or some such. And no, that is not at all what I was. I was all damage all the time. I had some heal spells, but I think I used them more often to damage undead than I did to actually heal my party members. With my big ones, at least, I'd save those kind of situationally. I might use them if like we were in real dire straits. But mostly I'd have some of my low level spell slots dedicated to healing, so we could like heal up between combats. And other than that, I'd just like all damage all the time with some crazy ass meta magic cheese, and it was pretty fun. Yeah, we got into this boss fight with this giant shadow guy that came out of this graveyard and summoned a bunch of swarms of crows and ravens and a bunch of zombies that came and were fighting us, and I ended up getting one of my eyes gnawed out, was on one of their random tables by the ravens as they came and devoured me, and then
it was pretty brutal.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. And then I got hit by some sort of an undead guy that did crap loads of Constitution drain. Brought my Constitution score down to, I think, like 6 or something. 5 or 6. This was like really low Constitution, which took away most of my hit points there. Between that and the actual damage itself, it put me to literally 1 hit point. And I was like, okay, that's pretty much it. As soon as I got like one more turn, and I soaked as much damage into them as I could with my few spells, because I had some good damage dealing spells ready, but none of them worked on undead, and so I was just kind of spamming my lower level AoE spells for the double damage against the swarms, which seemed like a good idea at the time, and I did pretty good damage in the end, and I certainly helped mitigate a lot of the swarm damage to everybody else, but it was not enough to save me, and I ended up being devoured by these ravens and killed by this undead guy who had killed another person recently and was like bringing them back as zombies. So then everybody was like, oh shit, they're gonna bring him back as a zombie. And so one of the other guys just like flame striked my corpse. He's like, nope, we're not having that. So yeah, it was a good time. Yep. Go me. I never got to finalize my plans of bringing back Elder God from the Nethers to devour the world, unfortunately. But such is life.
I mean, bad for you, but probably good for everybody else.
You know, it was an interesting character to play in a generally good party. because basically my shtick was that I wanted to make the world a jollier place for when my master returned to devour us all, because jolly souls taste better. So I was an evil person. I would, literally, if I couldn't make you jolly, then I would probably just kill you, because, you're not going to get jolly on your own. But I still managed to actually play well with the generally good aligned party, and we had some good interactions, and they were always skeptical of my motives, which is legitimate, but they all generally seemed to have a good time role playing with my scheming, which was eventually hopefully going to go places, but that's how that works when your player characters die. All right. Oh, and I got somehow distracted from what we were talking about. So next week, I'm going to have a guy from Cobblepath Games, who are the creative minds behind Hyrule Heroes Fan RPG, which will be a really fun topic next week. And the week after that will be the E3 betting special, just like we did 2 years ago. We didn't do it last year because there was no E3, but our good friends Kevin O'Rourke and Crow are coming on the podcast again in 2 weeks. For now, you can follow them. Follow Shabazzle on Twitch and Crowbird Cannon on Twitch. Both of them do various different things. Shabazzle is our buddy Kevin O'Rourke. Does D&D streams, I think on Wednesdays usually. And they're always getting up to some fun shenanigans. I've watched a couple of them. They're pretty fun. And Crow has recently been actually doing some kind of charity stream. And I haven't been watching him recently because every time I see him, I'm like, oh, look, Crow's live. I should watch. But I'm already in the middle of something, which is kind of my problem with watching streams on Twitch. I don't watch nearly as many of them as I would like. I would love to support all of the little Twitch streamers that I, am buddies with, but I just suck at watching streams. Anyway. What have you been paying, Chris?
Have I been playing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, a lot of Dota 2 Ring. Because I can't suffer enough, apparently.
Nice.
I've also been playing Pathfinder Kingmaker, which would be showing up in the stream if OBS were not being so shit. Which normally it's not. Normally OBS is a pretty good program, but
right, yeah, it's just being annoying for us today.
So I've been having fun with that, and that's one of it's interesting because this is the first CRPG I played where you can actually swap between real-time combat mode and actually turn-based mode, real turn-based mode. And because it's Pathfinder, and I know that game really well,
right?
Even though it disallows a lot of the more broken options, which sad for me, unrepentant power gamer that I am. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's got kind of a neat overworld exploration mechanic where you can go to a bunch of different areas and run into random encounters and just have random fucking adventures. Which is kind of a nice break from what might otherwise be a fairly linear adventure path. So, yeah, I've been having some fun with it.
All right. Sounds pretty cool. All right, I've just edited the stream so it lets people know that we're here. In case you couldn't hear us. Haha. I feel like a cleverish person. Anyways, shall we go into the news and booze? Which means Sean has to drink something stupid with a theme song. Which I should decide which... I guess I'll just do the Hammered Bros because we're going to go into the news and booze anyways. So if you don't usually join the podcast, the theme songs are written by me and I play them on my bagpipes or my practice bagpipe, depending on if I want to set up my full electric bagpipe or if I don't. In this case, it's my practice chanter. So yeah, it's always a fun time to have extra bagpipes. And if you want more bagpipes, just say so in the live chat. And usually I will get back to you unless I forget, in which case I'll record a video later and put it on Twitter. was the greatest. Oh my god, what a cool theme song.
If I ever,
Yay.
whenever I have to listen to you playing it, I have to unmute the YouTube video. Because otherwise I can't hear it through Discord.
Right? Because Discord picks up voice instead of just everything from the... Because as far as I know, there's no setting on Discord to just make it pick up all of your mic chatter. I don't know. There might be somewhere, but I haven't looked around for it enough. Anyways, Sean Drinks Something Stupid this week is a cocktail, which I invented, and then I thought, well, that's kind of uncreative. I'm going to look up a recipe using similar ingredients online, and then I found a recipe that literally told me exactly the same thing that I have just thought of, that I thought that's not creative enough. So apparently it's creative enough for some guy online who doesn't know how to write drink recipes. So I have a buttload of extra Kahlua because a buddy of mine gave me a bottle of Kahlua like 6 months ago, and I haven't drunk it all. And then he just gave me another bottle of Kahlua, and I wondered why the hell he keeps buying Kahlua. It's like, why are you doing this? If you don't drink the Kahlua, why did you buy 2 bottles of it and then give them to me? But no problem. Anyways, I had this Kahlua, and I was like looking at what else might pair with it to make something interesting. I was like, I have some Malibu coconut rum. I was like, that might work. So I put in 2 parts of that and 1 part of each of those, and then filled up the rest of the glass with chocolate milk, which I thought, well, that's just kind of basic. But then I looked it up. I was like, I just Googled like drink recipe with Kahlua and what's the other stuff that I just said? Malibu. And yeah, it was like the first thing that came up is literally just Kahlua, Malibu, and chocolate milk. So apparently this is called a Kahlua Malibu Cow, which is a stupid-ass name for a drink. But, I mean, it tastes like chocolate milk with a little coffee in it.
I mean, I would like that.
Did I just hear a Discord ding? Is somebody else in the Discord?
No. What happened was I exited out of Pathfinder Kingmaker because we can't stream. And for some reason, that crashed pretty much every program I had and caused them to all restart.
Ah, well, that was awfully silly.
So, the game is buggy, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, because I was like, ooh, we have somebody invading our stream. I love it when that happens. That hasn't happened in a while. Because we are the kind of podcast that I just leave the Discord open, so every now and then we'll have... Kevin's jumped in a couple of times. My brother Dan jumped in at the end of a podcast once. He's like, hey, what's going on? I saw you guys were on Discord. It was really awkward. But, you know. Anyways, yeah, this is all right. What kind of beer are you drinking, Chris?
I am drinking a Breckenridge Brewery Avalanche Amber Ale.
That's not a bad one. It's not, like, my favorite, but it's, like, it's all right.
Yeah, I describe it as all right. It's like, yeah. It's a real beer.
Mm-hmm.
I'd give it a 10, probably.
All right. Nice average beer. For those of you unfamiliar with our scale is based on 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons stats, where you have a roll of a pool of D6s to give yourself a number between 3 and 18, and usually if you get an 18, you're cheating. So our scale is between 3 and 17, because sometimes we have to cheat and give a beer an 18 because it's that fucking good. But 10 is average, so that's not bad. Yeah, this chocolate milk stuff, I'm going to give it like an 11, because, like, I mean, it's basically just chocolate milk with booze in it. But I like chocolate milk, so fuck you, don't judge. Yeah, it's not bad. And I will get into my beer in a minute, because my beer is an absolutely, totally different style. I got a barley wine this week, which I do not think I want to drink at the same time as chocolate milk stuff. But, yeah, so that'll be coming up. Anyways, let's get into the news and booze. First piece of news and booze is,
kind of a shitty piece of news and booze.
Yeah, it is. And we don't cover a lot of, like, this kind of shitty piece of news and booze very much, but I thought it was the kind of thing that we should bring a little attention to and call out the people doing this and call them fucktards. So Little Big Planet has suffered attacks from hackers posting transphobic messages in the game. This started in March, according to the developer, and the latest attack is covered up by a little doohickey that says Chris is looking up. The latest attack was created a big enough issue for them to justify literally taking down their servers temporarily.
Yeah, so I actually read this, and this got me enough that I went read more on it. So it sounds like it's just, based on the information I'm hearing, it's just one guy issuing a DDoS, taking down the servers, and somehow not just doing a DDoS, he must have infected the server somehow because he's causing these transphobic messages to pop up in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just kind of like a nasty rider bonus to the attack on the servers as well, of bringing the servers down. So it sounds like they're taking them down to make them more secure and to keep pieces of shit from, spewing their hate on to what's like one of the most innocuous fucking games.
Yeah, I think this is the weirdest part about this is that it's Little Big Planet, right?
Yeah.
Not like Sackboy's Big Adventure that just came out, but the original 2008 PlayStation 3 game servers are getting hacked like this, and what the actual fuck is wrong with this shithead?
It's one guy. I'm like, I don't know. I wouldn't do that.
Right?
Because I'm like, that sounds like an awful lot of consequence for no reward.
Yeah.
But
and like, just, I'm gonna say it, if you're a transphobe, you're a fucking assface. Fuck you.
You know what? Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Just let people be who they are, you shitface. Dick, cock, penis.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
You dick cock penis.
You dick cock penis. We'll have to drink for the greatest insult ever created. Right here, live on Drink to the Past.
Drink to that.
Alright, so, away from dick cock penises for a second. Metro Exodus has become the first PC game to support the DualSense controller with haptic feedback and adaptive trigger compatibility. I thought this was kind of neat, because I have me one of these DualSense controllers, and I have me a PC, but I don't have me a Metro Exodus, and I am vaguely aware of the game. I don't know, because I remember I went to pick up something, and there was a whole buttload of people at GameStop at the time that this came out. I think I went to pick up Rage 2, and there was a bunch of people there, and I was like, oh man, Rage 2 is super popular, isn't it? I didn't realize it was this popular, and everybody else in the entire building was there to get Metro Exodus, and I was literally, I think, like, one of two guys that pre-ordered Rage 2 at that GameStop, and I was like, oh, okay. So it was, like, ridiculously popular at that time, but it was so weird, because I had heard, like, nothing about this game, and like, since then, I've seen, like, very few advertisements for it, even. But, like, at GameStop, right when it came out, it was the hottest shit. And it's, like... Anyways, yeah. So, I think this is kind of neat, that PC games are supporting the fancy-ass stuff in the DualSense now. What do you think of that?
I'm happy to see more PC support for controllers. I feel like PC support for controllers other than the Xbox controller, or like Xbox controller derivatives, have been lacking for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see games actually taking advantage and letting people use their fucking controllers.
Yeah.
Because everything is USB now, so...
Right, yeah. And speaking as somebody who has a buttload of different controllers for different stuff, I feel like getting more use out of your controllers is always a good thing. I have I've used several different controllers on my PC, because Steam is compatible with, like, most controllers. So anything I buy on Steam, if it's controller compatible, it's just like, yeah, whatever controller you're using, it works. But it doesn't always support things natively, like motion controls or, like, haptic feedback and stuff like that. And even, like, on, like, Switch, like barely anybody uses the haptic feedback functions in their games on Switch. Not some developers are more keen to using motion controls on Switch, but then like you go to like PS4, and the PS4 controller had motion controls. Now the PS5 does as well, but like the only two games I know of that used motion controls were The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2, and literally all it was you shake the controller to charge up your flashlight. And I'm like, these controllers are so fucking fancy, but nobody's using them. And like, after I played Splatoon 2 with motion controls, I feel like that's just the right way to play shooters now. And I'm like, why don't shooters just incorporate motion controls all the time? And because it feels great in other shooters that have them now too. Doom on Switch has motion controls. The Last of Us Part 2 added them later on PS4. And it just feels really natural to use that kind of motion control, at least to me. And I'm like, for forever, this hardware has been here for a whole console generation, and nobody's doing shit with it. So to see that maybe somebody's going to do it on PC, maybe that's going to start a trend. I think that could be cool.
So I think motion controls for first-person shooters were always like a better idea than say like joysticks.
Uh-huh.
But I also got to say, as someone who plays mouse and keyboard PC games a lot of the time, that the competition will be tighter than you think on that. Maybe motion controls will win out eventually, but it'll have to wait for a whole generation of gamers to age out, basically.
Right. I don't know. I play Halo Online sometimes on my PC, so I know I'm like playing. They've now implemented a thing. I haven't played in a little while, but when I was playing on my PC, I was like not uncompetitive with a controller versus mostly mouse and keyboard players. And now they have a thing where it matches you with mouse and keyboard players between Xbox or PC, and it matches you with controller players. Depending on what you're using, it'll match you based on that, in Halo at least. But yeah, like Halo is a game I feel like would really benefit from motion controls. I saw a video of somebody who remapped some of the I think it was a Nintendo Life guy that remapped the controls in Halo to use the motion controls, because through Steam you can do that and make it work, but it's like that's like more hassle than I want to do.
You just want to
I just want Halo to just, hey, you can use motion controls. Which would be hilarious, because the current, only one of, Xbox is the one of the current three, big three console makers that doesn't have motion controls in their basic controller. So, I feel like that's unlikely, but it would be awesome. Netflix is allegedly expanding into video games. This is a rumor that I've seen circulating around. I'm sure if you Google it, you could find a legitimate source or something. I don't know. I didn't find it from any source that I was like, oh yeah, I need to trust this source. But I saw it circulating enough bits of the internet that I thought it was yeah, we could go over this rumor. So apparently Netflix is maybe, allegedly planning to start somehow giving you game streaming in addition to movies and TV and stuff.
I have an idea for what they could call this new service, even.
Game Pass?
They could call it GameFly.
Oh! Insanity. Are Netflix and GameFly actually related?
I don't think so. They both had the same business model, except GameFly died when digital distribution happened.
Right. I thought GameFly still existed. I'm not sure.
I haven't heard anything from them. Maybe they do still exist. Let me look them up here. Come on, Google.
Yeah, they're certainly not very popular anymore, but I feel like they still are around somewhere.
It looks like they're still around.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you could subscribe to Game Pass And then you wouldn't have to wait for the mail.
Yeah. I don't know how their business model...
Netflix, I feel like, though, is one of the few people that I think that if they, like, really went on in this, they could seriously compete with Xbox in this space, though. Because right now, video game streaming, Xbox has the market cornered. Because they have a good, solid service. We did it last week. I was streaming Halo. If you want to go back and listen to that podcast, or even not listen, but just look at me playing Halo from my PC, from some other PC in a warehouse somewhere. You know, I was streaming Halo, and it worked on my PC pretty well. It works on my phone pretty well. And Stadia is the only, like, almost competitor, but their service sucks and nobody likes them. And I feel like they're going to tank in a year, and it's just going to go away.
They're either going to tank in a year, or they're going to be on life support because Google has bottomless pockets.
That's true. But yeah, basically, Microsoft has that particular corner of the industry covered. And I think if Netflix, like, got some, like, most of the third parties that are already on Game Pass, and then some good, like, maybe original titles or some good exclusives, and they bundled that into just Netflix, like ideally just with your pre-existing Netflix subscription, it's just now part of it, that would really, really compete really well. But even if it was like, hey, pay $5 more a month and you get, 100 games on the service, something like that, 200 games on the service, like Xbox, I don't think they'd probably start with 200 games on the service, but I bet they could easily build to that like Xbox has. I think that Netflix is in a position where they could easily advertise that and easily get everything rolling that they need to be like another industry giant in that regard.
Yeah, just so long as they actually throw their weight behind it.
Yeah.
Execute well.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, because obviously streaming movies, you don't have to have as good of a connection or anything as games. It has to run well. But if they can make it run well and have some good games on the service, I could absolutely see it just going insane. Next piece of news and booze, Roger Craig Smith is still going to voice Sonic.
Okay, so I guess he's back for this one.
I guess. So if you remember a month and a half ago, I feel like we covered this, that Roger Craig Smith, as well as some of the other voice actors from the Sonic series, had all like said, hey, we're stepping down from our roles, we're not going to reprise. I think it was Amy, Sonic, and Tails' voice actors. But not the guy who plays Dr. Robotnik. I'm blanking on all their names right now, except for Roger Craig Smith. But, they all stepped down, and now Roger Craig Smith has just announced on Twitter that, hey, I'm going to voice Sonic anyway. I think this is just kind of random. But it's just one of several little pieces of Sonic news today, because there was a Sonic not Nintendo Direct, because it's not Nintendo, but it was totally a Sonic Nintendo Direct. So I think that's neat. You have anything to say about Roger Craig Smith, or should I move on?
Let's move on.
Right.
I got nothing.
Right. I like him as Sonic. He's fine. But, yeah. So, glad to see he's back. Sonic Colors Ultimate has been announced. It is a remaster of the original, coming to Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC September 7th. So, I'm kind of actually excited about this. I never played Sonic Colors when it originally came out, because it came out in the 10-year break I took from Sonic after Sonic 06. Or 11-year break, I think, because I literally did not touch the Sonic series between Sonic 06 and Sonic Mania. Didn't play a single one.
Wow.
It's
not like that was a mistake.
Right? Because I played Sonic 06, and it made me hate my favorite character. I literally quit in the Knuckles segment, and Knuckles has always been one of my favorite Sonic characters, and I'm like, the fact that I hate playing as my favorite character is like a travesty among travesties. I was like, fuck this game. And I I think the only thing that I sort of did, I played a demo of Sonic Heroes back at Kmart. Remember Kmart?
Yeah, Kmart used to be a thing.
Yeah. It might be a thing in other places in the world, I have no idea, but the one around here is now just a place where hobos hang out.
Pretty sure they went completely out of business.
Could be.
Let's see. They're like a... Oh yeah, because they were a subsidiary of Sears. Now they're a subsidiary of some other company.
Huh.
I guess they never... I guess corporations never really die. They just get bought by other corporations.
Yeah, that's pretty much how that works. But yeah, this actually, like, I watched the trailer and I was like, dude, is Sonic Colors actually really good? Because it looks really fun. The graphics are pretty cool from the trailer. I'm like, I could get on board with this. And there's, and I asked some buddies in Discord and they were like, actually, yeah, Sonic Colors is one of the 3D Sonic games that's actually generally well regarded. And I was like, oh, wow. That's pretty cool. So I might check this out when it comes out.
That is also what I've heard.
Yeah. Anything else about Sonic Colors, or should I move on to the last Sonic announcement?
Let's move on to that last Sonic announcement.
All right, the other announcements are technically two. A new Sonic game is in development for release in 2022. There's also a rumor about that, which has some kind of credibility, that the game will be called Sonic Rangers. But I don't know. You can look up that on your own. But anyways, they did confirm that a new Sonic game is in development, will release next year, and they're making a classic collection, which includes Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, and Sonic CD. So that's actually a pretty solid collection right there, I think. Because it's also only like $40, and you're getting, 5 games?
Reminds me of the Sonic collection on GameCube.
Was there one of those? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I'll believe you.
So, except this one, they're not including some of the weirder Sonic games, but they are including Sonic CD, which I think if I had to trade away like Sonic Spinball, Sonic 3D Blast, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, I think those are worth trading for Sonic 3D. Or Sonic CD, not 3D.
Alright. Yeah, I have not played all of these games, and I've never played Sonic CD, and I know I've played Sonic 1, and I've played a lot of other 2D Sonic games, but I never really paid attention to what they were called, because I was a kid, and I was just like, sweet, it's Sonic! So, so I've probably played a fair number of these other games, but I've never played Sonic CD, so I'm kind of... I might get this, too, as just a classic kind of throwback. I'm not sure, because it depends on when it releases and all that.
I think Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, the combined game of those two, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I think that was kind of peak Genesis Sonic, kind of where it was like at its best. And then it went downhill from there.
Right. I played the Game Boy Advance one, whatever that one was. That was okay.
Let's see. There was the game. Oh yeah, Sonic Advance. Sonic Advance was okay. I played it. I didn't like it as much. I didn't like the Sonic Advance games as much.
Anyways, next piece of news and booze. Out of Sonic news, we got Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown announced, which is kind of interesting. It's an enhanced remake by a team of all-star Sega developers, according to the press release, who worked on the original arcade version of Virtua Fighter 5. It's going to release as a digital exclusive to PlayStation 4 on June 1st, so that's coming up pretty quick here. In the last Virtua Fighter game that was released was way the hell back in 2012, was actually just a port of Virtua Fighter 5 for Xbox 360. So
that that feels like a game kind of out of its time. The whole Virtua Fighter series.
Yeah,
It's not like
it's funny because it's like one of those iconic series, but I didn't really think about how long it had been since a Virtua Fighter game had come out. And but yeah, I guess this is gonna be yeah, it sounds pretty neat. I liked Virtua Fighter. I think the last Virtua Fighter I played was 4 on PlayStation 2. So I don't think I ever played Virtua Fighter 5. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. That sounds... I don't know. I really have no idea. But I had a lot of fun with Virtua Fighter 4, and it had actually a pretty good character creator at the time, I remember. That was pretty cool. And pretty good fighting game stuff. I remember I didn't like it as well at the time as Soul Calibur 2 was kind of its contemporary, but it was like, other than that, it was one of the most fun fighting games I had at the time. Although in the PS2, we got the collections of King of Fighters. There was a ton of King of Fighters games, and I really liked those too. So, I don't know. It was one of those fighting games that I came around in the PS2 generation, and it was pretty fun. Yeah, so it's kind of neat. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Dragon Quest III is getting an HD 2D remake, which is literally what they call... I think the official title of it is Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, which is just a wacky-ass title. But apparently it's runs in the Octopath Traveler engine, is what I read, and I think that's a weird thing to say because Octopath Traveler runs in Unreal Engine. So I don't know if that's like referring to the combat system or just the fact that like they took a lot of cues from it. If you look at the trailer, it really looks a lot visually like it's taking a lot of cues from Octopath Traveler and Project Triangle Strategy, where it's kind of got that sprite feel but in a 3D space, which is really cool.
It may be using some of the things built on top of Unreal Engine that Octopath Traveler used. Or it might just be marketing buzz. Hard to say.
Right, yeah. It's like, that's a weird thing to say, because it's like you boot up Octopath Traveler, and the first thing it says is like Square Enix, and then the second thing it says is Unreal Engine. So, but yeah, I mean, I love fucking Octopath Traveler, obviously. We've talked about that on the show here plenty. So, I'm like, this actually looks kind of neat. I've never been really big into the Dragon Quest games, but I think a retro style might actually be a better way to get into it than, because the first Dragon Quest game I tried was 11. I tried the demo on Switch, and I thought it was so weird because everybody loves this game, but I thought it was actually just pretty boring as shit.
I think the Dragon Quest games are liked a lot better in Japan.
Mm-hmm. But it's like, I feel like even a lot of Americans talk very highly of Dragon Quest XI specifically. So I was like expecting really good things, and it's like mechanically, I feel like it's a Super Nintendo JRPG, right? It didn't feel like it brought anything new to the table that wasn't like standard 25 years ago. And I was like, this is fine, and I just didn't love the story. I didn't love the characters either, so it was like, I think mechanically it wasn't like bad, but it was like, whatever. I've played, this, but in Dragon a retro Quest style, I think it might work better, and I don't know.
Dragon Quest, I always looked at those games and they always seemed kind of, I'm gonna get crucified for this, but they always seemed kind of like a generic JRPG because they were among the first JRPGs, or even the first JRPG.
Right, yeah, they were.
And it's like, there. They established a lot of those fundamental tropes. Like,
yeah. I think there's merit to that, but at the same time, I feel like not moving past them in 2018, whenever that game came out, I feel like that's a problem. If all you have is the tropes that you invented 30 years ago.
It's, you can still see a lot of those tropes just being played completely straight in like a lot of anime.
Yeah.
Which kind of gets me. I'm like, don't. I was like, yeah, there's something to be said for the classics, but don't you guys want to riff on things eventually?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, or don't you want to like mix it up a little?
Yeah, I tried to get into Demon Slayer the last couple of weeks because a lot of people have told me Demon Slayer was really good, and that was one of the biggest criticisms I have for it. Is the protagonist is literally just a generic shonen anime protagonist guy. He's like every other one, but like I feel like my favorite shonen animes, like One Piece and Dragon Ball, they all like they have that same protagonist, but they give him some kind of quirk, so he's slightly more interesting, right? Like,
no, it's like Dragon Ball kind of gets away with it because it's kind of the shonen anime.
Yeah, that's another one that really
all of them come from.
Yeah, Dragon Ball
basically
is one that
Akira Toriyama invented like a lot of Japanese tropes, and
yeah.
Now
if the trope
copying.
starts there, then you are forgiven, right? If you, it's like I say about Zelda sometimes inventing things that are now like just cliche in other video games. If you start a cliche, then you are revolutionary.
Yeah, and that so it's always you always have the genre creator or like the genre codifier or whatever, and then you have like notable like entries in the genre that are like better than average or pretty good.
Yeah,
and then you have like you eventually get to what is it? It's like the deconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where My Hero Academia comes in. It definitely takes a lot of shonen tropes and takes them to their logical conclusion, and then wraps it up, and then kind of explains them in a way so you still get a good story out of it.
Yeah, because I like My Hero Academia. With that one, like, still Deku is like that generic shonen protagonist, but he's also kind of a super nerd. And so he's got that going for him. He's always muttering to himself. He's always taking notes. And it's, just these little character quirks that, differentiate him just enough to be an interesting character instead of the main guy in Demon Slayer who's just like, I'm happy all the time for no reason. I'm positive about everything. It'll be fine. And you're just shut up. Kill some demons.
The character of a cardboard cutout.
Also, I feel like that show puts in exactly enough gore to get a TVMA rating and no more. And it's like, if you're gonna be a gory anime, fucking be a gory anime. Speaking of gory anime, I guess we could talk about Miura is the author and illustrator. We should talk
about the death of the author of Berserk.
Yeah, that guy. You ever get into Berserk at all?
I watched the old anime, not the one not the more recent one with the 3D animation, but like the 90s anime.
That's kind of where I got into it, and then I read like a tiny bit of the manga, which picks up kind of where the anime leaves off. So it was pretty cool, and then I got into the new ones. They've got, because they basically, the 3 movies they have are remakes, or collectively are a remake of the 90s anime. And then from there, they started a new series that picks up where the manga picks up from the original. So then they, I think that was on Funimation for a while, but now it's not, so I haven't actually been able to watch it. But the movies are pretty good, and it's like, if you liked Berserk, then definitely check out either version of it. It's just a fantastic anime, and so many video games, so many anime draw from that you don't even realize, and I feel like nobody talks about Berserk enough, so go check out Berserk. And so rest in peace, Miura-san.
What I've heard from the people that are nerdier than me is they say neither anime does it justice, you gotta read the manga. Which is funny, because I actually really liked that original anime, so...
Yeah.
Manga's got to be even better, and now it's not gonna ever be complete. So that's just a shame.
I've heard that somebody is going to complete it based on his like notes and stuff, kind of like Christopher Tolkien did with his father's work, and completed some more of those Lord of the Rings lore books and stuff like that. So don't quote me on that, but I heard that, and I would be very interested if that all happens. But yeah, I'm like, I haven't read any manga in a long ass time, so maybe that's going to be my next one. I'll have to get into Berserk. That'd be awesome. Last piece of news and booze is Pokemon release dates. Sinnoh remakes are coming out November 19th. Pokemon Legends Arceus is coming out January 28th. So actually, surprisingly, not that far away from each other. November is like a normal time to release a Pokemon game, so no big surprise. It's almost more surprising that it wasn't like fucked up and delayed because of COVID. So I'm glad to see that those are coming out. I'm in the camp that actually likes the Sinnoh remake graphics. What about you, Chris? Have you watched the stuff about them?
I have not seen the Sinnoh remake graphics. I'm going to take a quick look at those.
They're very divisive, because I feel like they draw just enough from the like original DS graphics to be like endearing in their own way, but a lot of people are just don't want to have it. They're just like, nope.
They're upset that it's okay. I'm looking at screenshots of it, and I'm like, it's very the overworld sprites or the overworld models are very chibi.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't hate it. It's not. Pokemon's always been kind of, cutesy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's kind of what the sprites looked like in the original game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I can understand why it might bother somebody, but I'm like, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. And Pokemon Legends, of course, is the one that I'm way more excited about, because it looks to be like Pokemon finally expanding what Pokemon could be after, however fucking long. Because that is actually going to be like this big old open world game where you can actually interact with Pokemon in the wild. They'll just be, it's like the wild area from Sword and Shield, but it's the whole fucking world. And I think that's incredible. I'm like, why have they not done this before? And so yeah, I'm very excited about that one. You actually played Gen 4, so are you excited about the remakes and or Pokemon Legends? Because they're both, obviously the remakes are based on Gen 4, and Pokemon Legends is basically set in the Sinnoh region like 400 years before or some such. So it's still like Gen 4 adjacent. What are your thoughts?
Pokemon Legends is the one that holds my interest more, because I feel like this is what time does to you. I played through Pokemon Platinum. Is that what it was? Back in college, and I had my fill of that. So I'm like, I kind of would want to retread it, but it's also a game that I've already played and invested a bunch of hours in, and also created hacked Pokemon in.
I remember that, because I remember you were like, we were talking about it one day, and you were like, yeah, we could have a Pokemon battle, this will be sweet. And I'm like, all right, sweet. And I thought you were trolling me, because your first Pokemon was a fucking Magikarp. I'm like, what? Okay, this will be easy, whatever. You and your troll team, Chris. And it really was a troll team, because it used, like, the Ho-Oh exclusive Holy Fire move, and just, like, fucked up whatever guy I had. And I was like, what the shit? You fucking killed all my team with a fucking Holy Fire Magikarp.
I was like, yeah, I had to. I put that guy in there specifically just to fuck with you.
Yeah. It was awesome. Alright, so. I'm excited about it because I never played Pokemon Gen 4. So I am excited about both of these. Specifically both of them. But I think more so Pokemon Legends because, you know how I am with open world games just in general, and to see how much it seems to be expanding on what Pokemon can be, I'm just really excited about that. So
you played it. You played Gen 4 just a little bit, right?
I played Soul Silver, which was Gen 4, but it was the remake of Gen 2 that came out in Gen 4. So I had all the Gen 4 Pokemon and mechanics, but it was still Silver for story and all that. So I've never really
Right,
seen the story of Gen 4, and I've never seen most, like, there's, it feels like the biggest gap in my Pokemon knowledge base. Whenever I see a Pokemon and I don't know what it is, it's almost always from Gen 4, because that was one of the gens I skipped. I skipped Gen 3 and 4, because in middle school I was like, no, I'm too big and cool for Pokemon, that's for babies. And then in high school I was just like, what a fucking idiot I was. I'm gonna play Pokemon, it's fun, I don't give a shit anymore. So, stupid.
Yeah, I feel like that's just a normal thing you go through.
Everybody
like,
has a phase.
I'm too cool for this. And you're like, no, you're not. Shut up.
Yeah. Like,
kid.
Shut up, middle school me. You're an idiot. But, yeah, so I never really got to do that. I played the Gen 3 remakes, and now I'll play the Gen 4 remakes. So that'll be pretty cool. And with that, we'll get into our table topic. Alright, so the table topic this week will be postponed for 5 seconds while I talk about my beer. So today's beer of the week is Bigfoot Barley Wine from Sierra Nevada, which is a really good brewery just in general. They make a bunch of good stuff. They're out in California somewhere in the middle of the Sierra Nevada desert brewing beer for all those poor people that live in the Sierra Nevada desert. I assume. I really have no fucking clue other than it's in California somewhere. But, yeah, so I got a 6-pack of this, and I put a couple because it suggests to potentially save it for other years, and I was like, that's a good idea. I'll bottle condition a couple of these. So I will come back to these in a few years if the podcast goes on that long, which I like drinking, so it might. So let's get into the beer. It was pretty good.
Longer than 5 seconds.
Yeah, estimated 5 seconds. Your mileage may vary. Yeah. So yeah, this here Bigfoot is pretty good. It's kind of a little caramely, a little hoppier than I expect from a barley wine. But it sort of works.
Typically expect a...
Yeah, it's not like ridiculously hoppy, but it's like got enough hops kind of pushing through the malt profile that it's like, it's an interesting combo. It's kind of reminiscent of Stone Brewery's IPA in a weird way, because Stone Brewery's IPA, one of them, I think it's their regular IPA, because they make a crap load of different styles of IPA. But one of their IPAs I had, I think is just their regular Stone IPA, is like very malty and not as hoppy as a lot. So it kind of hits that balance that is uncharacteristic of an IPA, because usually they're way towards the hop end, and also uncharacteristic of a barley wine, because usually they're way toward the malt end. So it's a really interesting beer. That's pretty good. All right. Table topic today is about whether or not you plan the end of a campaign, and should PCs be able to alter the ending by how they interact with the world. So I think both of us like loosely plan the end of a campaign as we're designing it. Is that, would you agree there?
I think that's mostly fair. The vast majority of my campaigns have I have some distant idea of how they'll end, but I would call it a... What would you call it? I would call it a like an open ending, where it's like you get to like the big ending, but you can continue playing if you want.
Right.
Is the way I would normally intend to do things.
Uh-huh.
Not that it works out that way. Like my last big campaign I ran did not at all end how I had initially planned it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a good ending, and I was like, yeah, I was happy with where it ended, and I said, all right, I'm gonna wrap it up on this one and figure out something new to start.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what is it? I guess I pass it back to you and also ask, when do you plan it? Do you plan it before you start running, or do you plan it like kind of in the middle of the campaign, or what?
Kind of depends on the campaign, because a lot of times when I plan a campaign before I start, I don't really think about how it'll end. I really kind of just imagine the idea of the campaign conceptually. Like, what will the theme of the campaign be? Mechanically, will I focus more on combat or exploration or roleplay, or how I want to handle that, and kind of the world building. And usually somewhere in building the world, I come up with how the players will fit into the story in the beginning. And sometimes I have an idea of how it might end based on that, but also player characters very rarely do what you expect them to do. So usually I don't have a solid idea of an ending. Sometimes I really don't have any specific intention of ending at all. Like, if we get to a point where I would just be out of story content, then I would end it, obviously. If I couldn't think of anything that I could justify putting into the story to extend it, or put a nice cap on it to have it have a real ending. So in general, I don't really plan the ending much, but sometimes, depending on the campaign and depending on, especially if it's a high-stakes campaign, like my Ragnarok campaign, then a lot of times I've got an idea in the back of my mind of, okay, what are they pushing towards? What will that affect in the world? And I have, a loose idea of what the ending could be there. But again, players get in my way, so to speak, and throw a wrench in my plans just by being player characters. They have a different idea of what's going on and how they should react to it than I ever expect. So that's one of the joys of being a DM, is that you just get to see what kind of wacky bullshit they're going to come up with, and you just kind of have to roll with it at some point. And that counts on the micro scale when you're in the session, as well as on the macro scale when you're okay, they did this crazy out of nowhere left field thing and the entire world is affected by it. What the fuck? Sometimes that happens in that kind of a situation, in that kind of campaign.
Yeah, I would say there's nothing that. It's kind of hard to think of anything better than the players taking your plans and in a good way, in a positive, constructive way, being we're going to do this thing that makes it so that everything that you thought was going to happen takes a hard 90-degree turn to the left, and now totally different things are going to happen. That happened in my last game, and happened fairly early on. And I wouldn't say that it went in a different direction. The whole game went in a different direction than I originally would have expected it to. Not that I was trying to say, oh, here's the direction to go, but but many things happened that were unexpected, that ultimately did not lead to any sort of conclusion that I thought would have been a more natural conclusion when I started running the game.
Yeah. So, if the PCs, like, throw a wrench in your plan like they always do, does that ever affect the ending? If you have, like, this idea of how the campaign should end in your mind, and the PCs do something totally different, like, are you going to find a way to make the ending work, or are you going to just change the ending completely?
I'm just going to change. I feel like there's only, and you can argue with me if you want about this. I feel like this is kind of where we're doing the best, but I feel like there's only one correct answer to this, and it's you let the PC's actions affect the world as they should, and if that leads to something completely different than when you expected, that is the mark they get to leave on the game, because it's not just your game, it's also their game.
Yeah, like, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I would say that it is situational, though, because obviously it depends on the scale of, like, how much they do affect the world with whichever particular action, right? Like, if you're, like, they're on the path to literally the final boss of the game, and they take a detour somewhere, then eventually you can just give them another plot hook that's like, hey, the final boss is in this cast, wherever the fuck the final boss is, something like that, and still have the same ending. Or sometimes, theoretically, in most cases, the ending of a campaign will be somehow killing the big bad evil guy. And if they go somewhere totally different and do something totally different, the big bad evil guy is still probably out there, and maybe you'll have a different scenario in which they have to fight him. But I don't think that it necessarily dictates, like, changing the ending. If you have a good ending that still makes sense, sometimes they will do something story-related that will make your ending not possible. I think that would be fine. Like, if they finally come to the big bad evil guy and, like, go Avatar on his ass and somehow, like, steal all of his powers from him, right? Then maybe you can't have the same ending. Something like, sorry, spoilers for Season 3 of Avatar, but it's been long enough.
I mean, if you haven't watched Avatar already...
You're probably not gonna, right?
Like, you should, but having it spoiled for you shouldn't, spoil it for you, if you know what I mean. You should watch the show even if you know the ending. It's a good show.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm like, it's... There's, like, detours and shit that the players want to do that doesn't really affect, like, the structure of, like, the game world, I guess.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, it's, you see this dungeon over here? They want to, like, explore this whole dungeon that's kind of irrelevant to, like, whatever is big going on in the game world. It's like, yeah, why not? They can do that. And
yeah. Or it's like when you put the players in a pub for the first time and you're like, there's a dark, mysterious, cloaked figure in the corner eyeing you from afar. And you go into all this detail about he's smoking his pipe, he's checking you out, looking you up and down, making inventory of all your equipment mentally, and the players are like, who else is in the bar? And you're just like, I don't know, a goblin named Wayne. They're like, we're gonna talk to Wayne the goddamn goblin.
So I just thought of something.
I
just thought my current campaign, I remember having a lot of... kind of the opposite thing, actually, is that I was like, okay, if they get involved in this particular plot line, this would probably be, like, the natural conclusion of the campaign. But chances are they're just going to want to do, like, player character stuff, and I'm happy to, like, let them do that in, like, this world that I made. And then the very first thing that happens is the player character chooses to be... chooses probably, like, the exact character build that would get involved in that plot line. I was like, okay, that's the quest, is you gotta go do that. So now they are... I was expecting them to go off the sides a bit, and instead they're kind of running straight down the middle. So that kind of a funny inversion.
Huh. Interesting how that happens.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd get my legendary frog reference.
Oh. What? I missed it. Where was it?
Wayne the Goblin.
Wayne the Goblin?
Yeah.
The last
Shout out to Legendary Frog.
The last thing I remember from Legendary Frog was dental plan.
Dental plan. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Pie day. That's good.
Pie day. Self-control.
Don't you eat this pie? Yeah, no. It wasn't a Kerrigan. It was one of these Lord of the Rings ones where it's like Sauron hung out with Wayne the Goblin. And it was funny. Go check out Legendary Frog. He's pretty cool. Does he still exist? Is all his stuff on YouTube now because Flash doesn't exist anymore?
It's still probably on Newgrounds because, Newgrounds is Newgrounds is still around.
Newgrounds is eternal.
It never stopped existing.
Mm-hmm.
Legendary Frog has a website, and the first thing it says on the website is welcome to legendaryfrog.com. Yes, I'm still around.
Wow. Awesome. Go check him out. So anyways, back to tabletopicing.
Yeah, so let's see. I would say I'm like, unless your world's like this thing is going to destroy the world plot.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's got that going on. Generally, the world's big enough that you can have any number of plot lines where it's like, oh yeah, they might be involved in this one thing, but then they might decide, you know what, fuck it, we got some mustard seeds, we're gonna take them and sell them in this desert, where mustard doesn't grow, and make a shitload of money, and then they'll have all sorts of adventures along the way. And then they'll like get there and deal with the problems there and just forget about whatever was going on in the place they were originally from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, just kind of that organic development is kind of the essence of D&D to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not want to trade that away. And if that means changing the plans for your game, or whatever sort of ending, or like spectrum of endings and like plot threads and whatever you envision, I feel like that's worthwhile.
Yeah. So when you're planning, do you ever like have an idea for multiple endings depending on what the players might do or anything like that?
Yes. I typically have a range of, if I'm picturing a certain endpoint, I typically have a range of what could happen at that endpoint to affect the world.
Mm-hmm.
That the players could change to do. So in my last game, had they gone the original ending, they would the endpoint either would have been leave the thing alone and just be like, alright, that's dangerous, leave it alone, and just go adventure elsewhere. Right. That would have been kind of an ending. Or it would have been, open it up and let's fight it, and if we win, we kill it permanently, and if we lose, the world's basically destroyed.
Right. Try not to destroy the world.
And ultimately, none of those happened because they went and fought a completely different big, bad, evil thing.
Uh-huh.
Which made for a more natural ending.
Yeah, for me, like, it's weird, because I don't always have a definite ending, like, at all. And when I do have, like, an idea of what I expect how it'll end, I still don't really think of it as a solid end point, you know? I always, like, have an idea of where the story will probably culminate, and then... But I've never actually got there. I've never DM'd a campaign that ended. So...
Yeah! That's true.
It's a weird thing from my perspective to come up with endings for the campaigns that I've run over time, because I have ideas of what I think the ending will be, and sometimes they shift over the course of the campaign, like, oh, the PCs decided to side with this person instead of this person, now they're going through it a little differently, and that's all well and good. It makes for interesting world building and interesting interaction with the characters that I create. I dig it. But I've never actually had that payoff of, like, okay, here's the last session of the game, right? You're fighting the big bad evil guy. finally. I've never actually had a group take a campaign through to the end, because we always get distracted with a different campaign or stop playing together for several months because there's a pandemic or something.
That's over a year now.
Yeah.
Hey, we're actually gonna meet in person tomorrow.
Yeah, holy shit, right? Everybody's all vaccinated and shit, so it's like, sweet, we get to actually play D&D, holy fuck.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So, you've never ended a game, so you've never had the experience of actually, like, seeing that come to fruition, not come to fruition, or go in a completely weird, different direction.
Technically, I ended a one-shot once with a TPK.
You know what? That's fine. That's an ending.
Yeah.
TPKs are an ending.
So, I think the party was you and another buddy of ours, way the hell back when I made a, like, I don't know, I feel like somebody challenged me to make, like, a 20th level player killer challenge that they were, like, able to make some sort of build that could take care of anything, and I made a player killer boss for 20th level that had all sorts of crazy ass abilities. It was like triple classed Merilith or something that had like shitloads of attacks per round and cleric spells and sorcerer spells up to 9th level casting. So it's like, yeah. I think you outlived the other guy, though, because you kept polymorphing into shit to reset your hit points.
Yeah, because the 3.5 speed change was stupid and reset your hit points to whatever your form was every time you used it, and you could use it once per round as a free action.
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually I ended up dying because it was definitely a player killer boss. But that was like a fight.
Yeah.
That was like a fight. That was less than one shot, and it was more like let's test these builds out.
Yeah. It was a decent fight. But yeah, I guess it wasn't really a, like, I guess you could call it a one shot still. Sorta. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you define one shot?
Truth be told, outside of like that fight, I have never run a like D&D-ish one shot that only went for one session. It's always like ballooned up in size to like 2 or 3. I've never played in one either. Because it's
I feel like we
you
did one once. Back at your place, way back in the day, with a group of ours that we couldn't decide on what campaign to play, so we created characters for a one-shot that you looked up online, and we...
Oh, yeah, okay, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, I was wrong.
And I think we all played 2 characters, so I had, like, a crazy guy with double shields that was just a giant wall of AC, and my other character was, like, a sniper that, like, hid behind him and just fucked up people with a bow.
Mm-hmm.
The unstoppable force and the immovable object.
I think one-shots are also easier to have a predefined ending for, because it's like, you begin, but the end's already kind of in sight.
Yeah, because it's
like,
pretty
it's
much...
not hard to...
You're basically, a one-shot is just you starting in the final dungeon.
Yeah.
Whatever dungeon may mean, because sometimes it's a dungeon and sometimes it's, like a battlefield or some crazy shit. Or a town where you have to figure out all the shit. Anywho, yeah, so anything else to say on that? I think we've got largely our opinions out there about how that all works.
Yeah.
All right. That was our video game topic theme song. So that means we have to go into our video game topic, which is all about endings. Imagine that. The topics are related again. So this one is about multiple endings in video games and whether or not that's a good thing. What are your general thoughts, Chris?
Like, I prefer... Okay, as a matter of taste, I prefer multiple endings in games. I prefer modular endings. The more endings, the better. The more your choices impact the world around you, the more of an impact I feel like I've had on the game. Fun I get out of it.
Right.
But I'm like, are they an unvarnished good thing? Not necessarily. I think some linear games, it makes sense for there to be a single ending. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't feel like that's a bad thing, and I don't. And in some cases, I don't think an extra ending is going to add anything of value.
Right.
It's so I like multiple endings, but are they a good thing for every game? Not necessarily.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm not as positive on multiple endings as you. Like, I like them sometimes. I think they have their place. I liked going out of my way to get the multiple endings in, like, Tales of Symphonia. If I had been a little bigger into Final Fantasy VII and managed to beat it, like, when it was popular, I probably would have gone back and got some of those multiple endings and stuff like that. For those big grand games, something about having multiple endings is just kind of neat to me. That the lore isn't necessarily a solid, immovable thing. It's depends on the way you go through the game or whatever, or you can do slight things to change the outcome or stuff like that. And I think it comes back to something you said in our table topic, is that sometimes the game is not just the DM story, it's the player's story. In tabletops, that's always true. And in video games, I feel like that's sometimes true. Because sometimes, like you said, especially in a linear game, sometimes the story is just the story. You get what you get. The developers and the story writers and everything have a story that they are presenting to you through a game. And sometimes it's more affected by what you do in the game. And I think, depending on how the game is designed, that really kind of changes whether or not multiple endings really is a good thing.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay, do we think visual novels are video games?
Yeah, I think visual novel counts as like a genre.
So,
video game.
I do know most visual novels. I'm thinking specifically of like the Phoenix Wright games here. I'm like, most of those games have a single ending, and it's either you game over or you get that single ending. And a game over is not really like an ending. The second game had a bad ending that you could get by doing the wrong thing at in the final case. But I'm now thinking to myself, other than it being kind of a weird thing and having a hilarious mistranslation in the last line of the ending, I'm thinking to myself, did it really add anything to the game? Was it good that it was there? Like, in theory, it's supporting player choice, but it's like, someone would be like, if they found out about it, they would be like, I get to see the bad ending, so I guess I'll see that first, and then I'll reload my save and I'll go do the thing that gets me the good end.
Right.
I'm like, so in that case, I feel like it was like I don't hate the existence of that bad ending. It's a bad thing, but I'm like, I also felt like if the game didn't have it, it wouldn't be worse off.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's like most JRPGs have a single ending. And multiple endings to a game that's fairly linear in design always feels kind of weird to me.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because like in Tales of Symphonia, it's largely a linear game. You know, you have open explorable areas, but in the end, like you go to this dungeon and then to this town and then to the next dungeon and then to the next town and then to the next and so forth until you're done. And the way to unlock the second ending is literally like you choose a different dialogue option in like the third to last cutscene or something.
And it's not really that much of a different ending. It's just, it's basically like, oh, do you have this party member or this party member at the end? And also, do you have this sense of like sadness and feeling betrayed or not?
Yeah. I've mostly forgotten what happened at the ending. It's been so long since I actually beat that game. But yeah, that kind of thing, I get what you're saying, definitely, is like, it almost feels out of place in that kind of a game. Whereas something that's a bit more open, like Final Fantasy VII, I think you could say the same thing, because basically you go dungeon to town, but I feel like there's more in-betweeny areas to, like, just investigate in Final Fantasy VII than there are in Tales of Symphonia. The world feels more open.
The world, and in Final Fantasy VII, it still has just that single ending. There's a lot of, like, solid plot points, you know, the ones that you can't really change. So, I wouldn't say it feels out of place, but it also feels like they could have changed things a bit there.
Yeah.
But then you get games like, what is it? Skyrim, where the game's all about being non-linear and going wherever you want.
Right.
But the ending is exactly the same, no matter what.
Yeah.
And it feels, and
that's one of my problems with Skyrim's design in general. Not that it's like a bad game or anything. It's a good game, but like a nick against it, in my opinion, is that the world is open, but it does not matter at all. Like, you go to town in any order, but it doesn't matter, because then, like, once you've been there, you never have to explore back the other way again, because you can just fast travel, and you gain literally nothing by venturing off the path at any point ever.
I mean, you get, like, I guess, like, shitty loot and stuff.
In certain areas, but, like, most places off the path in Skyrim just aren't useful. Because the paths are so close together in general that there's just not enough space to have anything good there. Because I think the problem is that they put in enough content for, like, a game world that was twice as big. But the game world was not twice as big, and everything feels really close together. Especially on a replay, after playing, like, Breath of the Wild or something, everything feels, like, claustrophobic. Like, I feel like I'm running into a new town or something, like, too often when I play that game anymore.
Yeah, it's everything's close together because they never want you to be bored even for a moment. But,
I don't think you've played Nier Automata, have you?
I have not. That is a game I've heard good things about.
Or the other Nier. Now, Nier Replicant is out now, the remake of the first one, so I've been meaning to get into that, but I haven't yet. But Nier Automata has an interesting take on multiple endings, because basically the game is like, it's like 8 or 9 hours long. It's a pretty short game, and kind of the point of it being short is to go on New Game Plus and replay and do things a little bit differently. So this game has like 15 endings or something, and each one of them is different enough to give you an interesting idea of like the lore and the world building. What do you think about that kind of approach for multiple endings?
The Nier and Nier Automata multiple endings approach, where it's
at least Automata does that. I haven't played Replicant, so I'm not 100% sure. I assume it does something similar.
I think that's like the game creator's kind of signature is you get an ending, then you play some more, and you get another ending that reveals something more. So,
Right.
in some respect, you're it kind of is one ending, but it takes much longer to get to.
Right.
But so I'm like, it kind of stretches the definition of ending.
Yeah.
So it makes me think. I was like, and I guess based on what I've heard, I would assume that if I were to play through it, I would like it. Like I would think it was a good thing, but having not played through it, I can't say.
Right.
Like it appeals to me intellectually.
Yeah.
Sounds like something I would like.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, is it a single ending or is it multiple endings? And I'm kind of more of a coming from the. It sounds like it's a single ending to me. It's just
You have to go through several endings to get to the ending, so to speak.
Yeah, you just get different iterations, or you get like more revealed every time you go through.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely an interesting kind of storytelling, but it still feels like it's a single ending because you're expected to go through all of it.
Yeah. So I have a weird experience with this game specifically, because I feel like if I had bought this game, I would have got to the first ending and then felt like, okay, I'll go through some more times, get some more endings to justify my purchase, so to speak. Because I want to get, like, if I buy a game, I want to get, like, a lot out of it if I can, you know. I'll replay it sometimes and all that. And with this game, it was one of the first few games I played on Game Pass, and I was like, I got through it, and I was like, well, I have so much other stuff to play on Game Pass, and I didn't pay for it, so I don't feel obligated to come back and experience everything in the game. You know, I was like, I really liked the gameplay, but I'm not sure I want to play through the, you know, all the levels again and again. Because, like they were good, but I feel like it would just feel grindy after a point, maybe. Which, I don't know, maybe it changes it up enough in the game to make it work. And obviously, you know, now you know a little bit more, so I think it would still be good. And it's one of those things in the back of my mind that I'm like, yeah, I want to go back to it eventually and get another ending, get another couple endings or whatever, but it's like, with all the games to play, it just felt to me like my time wasn't justified to go through the same content for the multiple endings, you know?
Yeah. And that makes sense to me.
Because it's a weird thing, too, because I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, like, fairly shortly before I beat this game, or before I played this game, I played and beat The Last of Us Part 2, and Last of Us Part 2 is like a 30, 35-hour game, somewhere in there. So it's not long, but it's like, it's longer. It's in that medium range. And I thought, it is so weird that I would rather play a 40-hour game once just to see the ending than to play a 9-hour game 3 or 4 times. But I totally would. I would absolutely, like, if I had the choice to play a 10-hour game 4 times or one 40-hour game once, I would play the one 40-hour game once. Because at the very least, I feel like all those 40 hours are variable. You know, they're dynamic. It's not the same thing 4 times.
Yeah.
But maybe that comes back to a gameplay sense, too. So but I feel like in this case, it ties into the idea of the multiple endings.
That's more like repetition isn't usually fun for us unless there's variation in it.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't know exactly how much variation there is, because, I mean, I could vary it up myself just by doing more side quests and stuff like that, but, you know, it's like, I had other things that I wanted to play, so I didn't.
Let's see. I think a game that really nailed multiple endings was Fallout New Vegas.
Okay.
That's a game where basically you have 4 big main endings you can get.
Uh-huh.
But then you have... It really does have the modular ending thing go on, where it's like you can get many, many different like endings to like, oh, and here's what happened to this companion, and oh, here's what happened to this town you interacted with, and oh, here's what happened with these people like you helped out, and it like goes on in a lot of, and this is like classic Fallout tradition.
Uh-huh.
Fallout and Fallout 2 had this as well, but New Vegas kind of had a lot more of it. In terms, and it was the multiple endings came naturally from the many, many different choices you could make, like the factions you aligned yourself with, how you ended up resolving like the central conflict in the plot, just kind of who you were playing with. So even when you replay the game and it's like everything resets, if you choose to go through it a different way, everything feels different.
Right.
Everything feels very differently because the world reacts to you, and it's not just that you're having multiple endings, it's that you're taking multiple paths. Yeah. It's not a branch at the end, it's everything is branching out as you play it. And I think that's a success in terms of multiple endings, is that you can't just think about the ending, you gotta think about the path that leads to it. With multiple endings, that's also the case. It's why I don't like multiple endings at the end of games where it's, oh, you make this choice or this choice, and that determines which of the multiple endings you get. Because it doesn't feel natural, it feels forced.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of get that. Another game I think did it really well, similarly, it was Knights of the Old Republic. Because that game, it more or less had 3 endings, basically, and it sounds like it did it to a lesser extent than Fallout New Vegas, but I still think it was like, it was a pretty well done idea of it, because it basically, you have your light side ending if you're a good guy, your dark side ending if you're a bad guy, and if you manage to land it right in the neutral area, there's a third neutral ending. But that's like really hard to get, because you actually have to like calculate your points exactly through the whole game and like make sure you don't have too many. Like if you even have like one positive light side point or one negative dark side point, then you'll get those endings. So it's like you kind of have to work for it to get a true neutral ending. But I thought it was kind of neat. And I never saw either of the other ones, but at the same time, I totally played into the dark side. And, like, as soon as they tell you... spoiler redacted. I was just, like, totally playing into it. And I was like, yes, okay, I am... Spoiler redacted. So, I don't know if you get the spoilers, but...
I think I get the spoiler.
Yeah, and I was just like...
You played way into it and went...
Yeah, and I was like, the moment they told you the spoiler, I was like... Okay, I am fucking here for the spoiler, and I am going all the way dark side, and I played into it as heavily as I could, and I took over the fucking galaxy like a boss.
You didn't, you didn't do the other thing.
Which other thing?
The, light side where you're like, nah, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, no, I was just like, I mean... I was already using the most violent solution to all of my problems that I possibly could.
Really Anakin Skywalkering every problem.
Right? Yeah.
That's a game that I picked up at one point and wanted to play, and then it did not work. So I had to refund it.
Lame. I tried to play through it again when they ported it to mobile, but the touch controls were just kind of shit.
So, yeah, no reason to
I would
play
like
that.
a modern, like, remake of that. If they just, like, streamlined everything a little bit and polished it up. That's an interesting thing, too. An interesting game, because mechanically, it's literally the Star Wars D20 system. It's literally Dungeons and Dragons Star Wars version in a video game, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. I think it was based on Star Wars D20.
It was, which is basically 3.5 D&D, but with a couple of like slightly different mechanics. But like if you understand the base of D20 of 3.5 D&D, it was like surprisingly easy to just cheese yourself out with all the best feats and you know what kind of equipment to stack together to be really just too powerful. It was pretty awesome. What do you think about multiple endings like in Morrowind, where Morrowind obviously is a game that has 2 sequels now. So Morrowind has this thing where it's like it's got these multiple endings, but they don't really affect the canon. Because in the Elder Scrolls terminology, I think they call it Dragon Break, where basically how it works is all of the multiple endings that you could potentially get are part of the canon, and the timeline is like, ooh, it's wibbly wobbly timey wimey, or you know, however you want to describe that. And it's
all of the endings
all of the
happened
potential
basically.
things. Yeah, all of those potential things happened, and so all of them affect what is now the reality in Oblivion, basically. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I never got any of the endings to Morrowind. I played it a little bit as a kid, but I was like, oh man, I swing my sword, but I miss because my attack skill isn't high enough, and also there's like, there were a lot of things about the game I didn't get, so I got frustrated and stopped playing.
To be fair, I am certain I played 300, 400 hours of Morrowind, and I also never beat it.
But my understanding was that your character in Morrowind was basically the power of saving and loading the game was like a plot power. As in it was like, oh, you're jumping, this timeline has failed, you jump to one that isn't.
Yeah, that was a funny kind of thing where, like, if you killed particular NPCs, it would give you that message, just be like, hey, you can reload your save now and fix your fuck up, or you can keep playing the game, but you killed that guy, you can't beat the game anymore. Right? You doomed the world by killing this stupid bitch in the Mages Guild.
The thread of prophecy has been severed.
Yeah.
I think I'm like, it makes sense that the multiple endings would be there, and it also makes sense based on your character's power that all of them happened at once. Mm-hmm. Because you're jumping timelines so that all of them could happen at once.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you fuck the timeline. So that's kind of funny to me, but I think that's... Mm-hmm. I think that I'm not sure if it's like objectively good, but I like it.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of it, but at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, so I guess it kind of doesn't matter. Because the only similar situation where I actually played the game is there's technically 2 endings to Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, even though they're not really multiple endings. It's just, if you kill the Black Knight is dead, and if you don't kill the Black Knight, theoretically the Black Knight escapes and he's alive somewhere in the world. But the canon ending is that Ike kills the Black Knight, but I didn't do that, but it was weird because the canon ending, that's what happened. So when I played the sequel, even though I loaded my data to get extra items when I got the new game, in Radiant Dawn, the canon story is that I killed the Black Knight, and I was like, that's not what happened. That's so weird. So I think this kind of thing kind of makes sense, but it's like, I don't know, because it's like if you're gonna have multiple endings, I feel like if you're gonna then have a sequel, I don't know what's the right choice. Do you have a canon ending like this, or do you have a Dragon Break where it's just like, okay, every ending is the true ending and the timeline is fucked up.
I think they could have resolved that in Radiant Dawn with one very simple thing. It's just asking a question: did I kill the Black Knight? Yes or no?
Right? Yeah. Just put it.
Load the same data, just like reading that as a flag.
Right. Yeah. That would actually be kind of cool too if they had like put that something into that, because there was a thing where like if you had your GameCube memory card in your Wii when you're playing this, you can like load your I don't remember what extra thing you got, but like you get some kind of extra bonus when you start the game, right? If you have Path of Radiance save file data that you load.
Yeah.
And it's like if they had done something with that, and then like if there was like alternate missions, or like even if it just added like one side mission where the Black Knight was alive and you had to fight him in Radiant Dawn, that would have been fucking awesome.
Or like you had to fight him, but then you could recruit him afterward.
Something like that, yeah, as like a little bonus for people who did that. That would be sweet. Dude, we need to like go back in time and like fix Fire Emblem. Not really fix, because that's still my favorite fucking Fire Emblem, and I think it's fucking perfect. But you know,
I mean, Path of Radiance isn't the one that needs fixing. It's Radiant Dawn that would need. And it's such a simple thing too. It just takes a little teensy amount of design forethought and the ability to flip one flag, and then have just that as like, oh yeah, if this is the case, then you change some of these dialogue options, and you have this optional, and you have this encounter happen at some point. Yeah. That's it.
That'd be great.
And it's such a small thing that requires not that much development effort to add such a huge feeling of impact.
Yeah.
It's like it's a force multiplier. It's like
especially since I'm pretty sure they like borrowed assets from the original too, and just like used, like they reused the game engine. I'm pretty sure reused a lot of the assets and just made a new game out of it. So like they already were like saving time on this pretty well, but you know. I'm also in the weird like obscure camp of people that actually likes Radiant Dawn pretty well too.
I played Path of Radiance. I never played Radiant.
Mm-hmm. I feel like Radiant Dawn was a pretty decent follow-up. I thought the story was compelling because it's like from the opposite side of the, war.
At least from the beginning.
Yeah, at least from the beginning. And then you kind of, line up with Ike and his friends and see what's up with them by the end. So
my reason for never playing Radiant Dawn might be one of the dumbest reasons possible. Is I did not like that the main characters were a healer and a thief. And I was like, what, thief? That's a weak class.
It's fucking true! Although, I think once Soth gets like a... I feel like he gets some sort of unique class once he levels up enough or something. So, he ends up being good because he's a main character. Because also that's a thing that Fire Emblem kind of does, is that your main characters are way fucking broken.
Don't you eventually just get Ike back? And then he's still Ike?
Yes, you get Ike back, and legit Ike is like one of the most broken characters in the game because he's Ike.
Yeah, Ike was broken in Path of Radiance, and he would be even, stands to reason, he'd be even more broken in Radiant Dawn.
Yeah.
So...
Anyways, I have a final thought, not a final thought, but a final point of discussion on the multiple endings thing, is games like Blasphemous, or the Zelda Oracle games, where you have a multiple ending that's quote-unquote the real ending. What do you think about that kind of thing where it's like there's the real ending that's locked behind some specific set of tasks? Like, as in the Oracle games, you have to beat one and then use your transfer code to transfer your save to the second one, whichever one, it doesn't matter which one you do first, to get the real ending where you fight Twinrova and Ganon. Or in Blasphemous, basically, the bad ending is that you beat the game, and the good ending is that you 100% the game. You literally just have to go find all the rest of the collectibles in the whole game, and then you can get the good ending in Blasphemous.
So I think that can be handled varying ways. I think having it... Well, I think with, like, Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons getting... Like those games should have just been sold together. Or they should have been, like, in the same pack. Because they were really just one game. It's just, you choose which way you go, which order you go in.
Uh-huh.
And then the true ending is, like, defeating zombified Ganon.
Right.
I
think part of the justification for releasing them as separate games was the multiplayer capabilities, because it wasn't really like multiplayer, but you could like trade rings and stuff, and so for that reason I feel like they wanted it to be a little bit like Pokemon, right? Like, oh, I have Oracle of Ages and you have Oracle of Seasons, so we can get different unique rings to trade with each other in the game. Where, you know, oh, I got red, you got blue, I'll trade you my Sandshrew for your Ekans, because they're version exclusive.
That never happened? Or it's like, it never was going to have that crossover appeal. It's like Pokemon Red and Blue, as much as I think that was also like, there's like, oh yeah, one game for the price of two, but it's also, Pokemon Red and Blue really did have, like, that social aspect.
Yeah.
Whereas Pokemon Oracle of Ages,
Pokemon Oracle of Ages. I want this fucking game, Chris.
Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages, Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons. You had two completely kind of separate games, and then you just kind of had, like, the ending, like, the extra ending tacked on if you happen to add both. So, it's like, all right, so I mean, they were complete games, I would say.
Yeah.
On their own, but the extra ending tacked on, it's kind of, they could have been to get. I don't hate it, but I'm like, it really wasn't necessary, and I feel like they would have been better together.
Yeah.
And I feel like the intended experience is you have both.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am, which is kind of funny, because I have both. I've beat both. But I've never got that secret ending because I didn't beat... I got both and I kind of started them both separately and I played through them. And so I've never completed a save file that used the code from the other. So I've never really done the Twinrova fight or the Ganon fight. I understand what happened because I'm, obsessed with Zelda lore and I just look up everything and read fucking every Zelda book they publish. But, it's a weird thing that as a huge Zelda fan, this is like one of the few Zelda experiences that I am missing because of this.
So that, I actually did play through that fight, and I was like, it's a good, like, final boss segment. It's like a good kind of cool bonus conclusion, but is it worth... Like, if you didn't like one of the games and didn't want to play the other, is it worth the extra money to get the other game? No. It's like, oh yeah, classic Zelda lore, Zelda shows up, and then they're like, oh, we want to revive Ganon, that kind of, all that.
And it is weird, because I was very happy with my two individual playthroughs of both games. I feel like each one as a standalone is as good as most other Zelda games, right? They are good Zelda games.
Yes, they're good Zelda games.
But the fact that the quote-unquote real ending is hidden behind playing both of them and doing something that's actually kind of a pain in the ass to do, especially on a replay, because it's like, on replays, I've I've started game files with these things and just never seen it all the way back through again because it's like I just got too much shit to play.
I mean, it is a whole 16 dungeons, so
Yeah.
it is kind of a task.
Yeah, because
I would like to see the Link's Awakening remake treatment of those games.
Fuck
Put them in one cart.
Yeah.
And then have us choose which one we play through first, and then we play through the next one, and then we have that ending. And I would like that.
I would play through that, because, like, most of my subsequent Link's Awakening playthroughs I haven't beaten either. But, like, you put that little bit of modern spit shine on it, make it so that you got more than 2 buttons to equip shit to, like Link's Awakening did, and or permabind shield to R and permabind whatever to this button, stuff like that. Okay, that's all you really need. And then it's just so much more accessible. And yeah. I would totally play through it if they did that.
So another thing. So you mentioned Blasphemous, and because I am the sort of person who looks up stuff like this even when I don't end up playing the games, I know what endings you're talking about. I know about going about getting that true ending.
That's kind of funny because I've played the game, but I've never got the true ending, and I've never looked it up. So I might be about to learn something.
I've got to say, games that have the true ending locked behind some arbitrary threshold, mostly I just think that's stupid. I think being like, oh, you gotta get 100% completion, you gotta do like this extra task that you gotta look up in a guide to know how to do. I was like, fuck you.
Right.
Stop disrespecting my time and just give me the fucking ending. If I wanted to do the extra tasks, you would have made them intrinsically rewarding.
Right. I feel like they were rewarding enough in Blasphemous for me that I would have... I went out of my way to do I got most of the collectibles, but like the obscure few that I missed, I didn't feel like trekking through literally the whole game again to see what little corridor here and there I missed, right? I just was like... And it's also a weird case where I got the bad ending, but I was still satisfied with it as an ending. Because when I beat Blasphemous, I didn't know there was multiple endings. I beat it, and I thought, this is like this weird, bittersweet conclusion to what I've been doing for the past, 12 hours or so. It wasn't super long. It was 12 or 15 hours, I feel like. I don't know. But it's like... I feel like the bad ending was, pretty good as an ending. It was a solid conclusion to what had happened. It was a sensical conclusion to what had happened, and it was presented in such a way that I accepted it, and I was like, that was a cool ending. And then I found out that there was, a secret true ending, and you could get it if you, went back through and collected all these collectibles. And I booted up the game again, and I looked at my map to see, what little... Because if you look at your map, you can see, what areas you haven't explored. And I'm like, 99% of the map is explored, but there's, little tiny bits and pieces here and there that I'm just like, okay, yeah, I could go all the fucking way back to this part of the map and maybe, hopefully, find one of the collectibles I missed. But I don't really know which one has what collectible. I don't... And it would just take, hours to trek through all of it back to check these few locations that I missed. And then, if it was in somewhere that I had explored and I just missed it somehow, you wouldn't have had any idea. And from what I understand, there's been a patch now that it makes that a little more streamlined. But I have not played Blasphemous since my original playthrough. But I'm told there is now a patch for the game that streamlines getting all these collectibles and shit.
I dislike hiding... Blasphemous is... Because I know that there were the 2 endings, and I know what the first ending is that you get if you don't do the tasks, I'm like... I'm like, I feel like you appreciated it. Obviously, these things are subjective because you, but I feel like it was looking at it, it looked like kind of a blue ball ending.
I can see how you say that, but it was like just the way that it was presented. I was kind of like almost salty about it, but I was like, you know what? I like the way that they kind of presented it, and I'm like, it's hard to explain without like spoileries, and I'm like, it's 2 years old now. Can we do spoiler?
Yeah.
I don't know, but so I'm like, I don't want to spoiler anything, but it's like I appreciated it for what it was, and at the time, again, I just didn't know there was 2 endings, so like I was like, I'm all right with that. That was a cool ending for what it was. It is certainly unexpected as shit. And that's one of the things that I really liked about it was just that I would never, I would never have predicted that even for this game. And it was like, yeah, it was on brand. It was totally like just the sort of thing that Blasphemous would do because Blasphemous is that kind of game. So I'm like, I respect it. I dig it. I was all right with it.
I guess what I would say is my taste about the 2 different endings aside, because they both kind of have their own issue. I dislike hiding the true ending or like the good ending behind obscure bullshit.
Right.
I think if I have to look it up in a guide, how to get the better ending, you are not doing right by the potential for multiple endings. Yeah,
because I guess, like, if I had this in a pre-internet era, I would have had no idea, and I would have just thought that was the ending, because it doesn't tell you that there's 2 endings. It doesn't give you a hint that you can get a better ending by 100%ing the game.
And it's like, even knowing to expect that stuff, and I was like, what, do I need to complete the egg collecting mini-game?
Mm-hmm. And it was kind of funny, too. Another game that kind of does this is Control. I think there's a second ending that you can get, because it sort of alludes to, like, if I go back and help all these people, then something will happen, basically. And so I'm like, maybe there's, like, another ending or, like, a post-game ending or something that I could get by going back through all the areas, because it's a little bit Metroidvania-like, where, like, if you go back to these areas, now that you have the power to fly and different powers...
unlock stuff.
Yeah, you can go different directions, you can unlock stuff like that, and do different quests. And so I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. But I was also just kind of done with that game. I was like, yeah, I saw it. At the very least, it was alluded to. It was like, I've never looked up, so technically I don't know if there's anything that happens if you 100% it, but it seemed like the game was telling me, hey, if you 100% this, you'll get a new ending, or a post-ending ending, something like that.
Yeah. Let me see, what do I think? I think I think this is highly implementation dependent, because it's like, with the way Blasphemous handled it, just watching it bothered. Just watching other people go through it bothered. But in terms of, like, Link's Awakening, having, like, for one, the ending is not really that different if you do the thing, and it's much more of a challenge to get, like, the secret additional part of the ending, and it's more of an addition. It doesn't really change anything about the end.
Yeah, you mean the oracles?
No, I mean Link's Awakening. I mean beating the game and not dying a single time.
Oh, that, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, when you said Link's Awakening, I was thinking A Link to the Past, and I was like, the game doesn't have 2 endings. What are you talking about? But yeah,
I mean Link's Awakening.
Yeah, and Link's Awakening makes more sense. Yeah.
So I'm like, that definitely has obscurity behind it, but it doesn't. The ending isn't substantially different. It's a
Yeah.
pretty minor difference.
Yeah,
But
it's
like a
kind
nice-
of it's not so much a different ending as it is like a bonus for completing the game without ever dying, right?
Yes,
Kind of
and
like,
it's a
if
nice
you beat
emotional
Halo
reward.
1 on Legendary, there's a bonus cutscene, right?
Yeah.
It's not a different ending technically, it's just here's a bonus cutscene. And it is fucking hilarious. If you'd never seen it, go beat Halo 1 on Legendary or look it up on YouTube, whichever one you feel like doing. I won't judge.
And then I'm like, and I really liked how Breath of the Wild handled it because the secrets there, they weren't really. It's like you had to search for them, but they weren't really obscure. You knew
Yeah.
that.
You knew there's like the 12 memories or whatever it is. You knew like you could look
all
at
this
these
extra
images
stuff,
and if you've like explored the world very much, which you have because that's how you play the fucking game.
Yeah.
Then you'll have an idea of how to do that. Yeah. So actually like I got that like my first playthrough. Hey, Joshua Thompson is in the chat. He's saying, did he not miss the sing? Is it still going on? It is indeed still going on. So we are here.
We're near the.
We are near
tail
the end. So currently we're talking about multiple endings in video games.
But I'm like, even if you missed the bonus extra cutscene because you didn't get those memories, Breath of the Wild, it's not the same thing. It doesn't feel like, oh, I have to do this arbitrary bullshit to
Yeah.
what I want out of the game. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
And it doesn't
getting
feel
this is
like
kind of
a
like-
true ending. Like I feel like that the true ending terminology has come from a specific place, and Breath of the Wild isn't really it. Breath of the Wild is like, you know, you do the extra challenges, and it's not even 100% of the game. It's 100%ing the memory quest. You get a bonus cutscene, and it doesn't really change the ending. It's just an addition to the ending, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah. So I think that particular trope of true ending or like addition to the ending can be handled to better degrees. Joshua Thompson suggests stopping, have multiple endings for the podcast. It's on topic.
Yes.
Well, I mean, technically, we always have multiple endings to the podcast.
Do we?
Yeah, the YouTube ending and the Podbean ending.
I mean, we usually have different beginnings because I start streaming and then we do the, 15 seconds to 2 minute intro on YouTube. Usually I cut them off at the same time on the recording. So, yeah.
Oh, I see. Let's see. But yeah, the trope where, oh, you didn't do the extremely obscure... Actually, I have a perfect example for multiple endings, for like true endings of something that bugs me, and something and of it being implemented well and it being implemented poorly, and they both come from the same franchise, even. And that is Sonic.
Ah.
So, in Sonic 2, Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, you can get the normal ending by just beating the game, and you
Right.
get the true ending by getting the Chaos Emeralds. And I like the way the Genesis games implemented that, because particularly in Sonic 2 onwards, once you got all the Chaos Emeralds, you could go Supersonic, so it felt like that was something you were encouraged to do anyway. It was more, oh, I'm going to get this bonus thing out of this. You also got like the extra true ending by having the ability to go Supersonic or having all those Chaos Emeralds. So you were like encouraged to play through the games multiple times and go through and just get them out of those secret stages. I think that I like how that was done in the Genesis games, because it was something you were naturally going to find out about and do on your own.
Uh-huh.
I dislike how it was done in the Sonic Advance series, particularly Sonic Advance 2 and 3, where to get the Chaos Emeralds, you had to know the very specific secret entrances to specific Chaos Emerald stages, of which there's only 7, and you had to know exactly where to look to get them. And take one of the mini routes there that was very unintuitive and very non-obvious. It's basically the looking up a guide problem. You had to look up a guide how to get to it, and even with the guide, it was a pain in the ass to find where these secret stages were.
Right.
It wasn't just like a thing you encountered at every stage or every checkpoint or whatever. It was something you had to go out of your way to, or you had to actually know where they were in the first place. I think that was a really shitty way of implementing that. I think they ruined what was perfectly good design.
Yeah. Joshua Thompson has an interesting point here in the chat. World of Warcraft raids for several expansions had special ending phases that only happened on the hardest difficulty, which is only cleared by about 2% of the player base, too. And he says, I think that little extras are fine, like Breath of the Wild's bonus scene, but anything that's only seen on the hardest difficulty that's a major plot point shouldn't be behind that wall. And I kind of agree. Like, we were just talking about the Halo 1 ending. If you beat it on the hardest difficulty, Legendary, you get a little bonus scene. It's a little bonus. It's cool. It's like, all right, you get a little reward. It's fine. But to have plot significant stuff behind that's bullshit in a hat. And yeah. Admittedly, I was the type of WoW player who had no fucking clue what was going on in the lore at any point. I'm just like I knew who like the big leader people were of the Horde, and so I knew that I should be pissed off when they fucking elected Garrosh Hellscream as the war chief when Thrall retired or died or something happened to Thrall. I forget. Anyways, this is like that is the extent of my World of Warcraft actual story knowledge. I just accepted the quests. I read very few of them. They were neat, but they were far too text-heavy and wordy, and all of them boiled down to go collect 5 guts from whatever monster is in this area. So I didn't give enough of a shit to actually pay attention most of the time. So
I'm like, I don't know, having a special like bonus phase of a boss for people on hard difficulty is like, they wanted difficulty, so having an extra multiple ending phase, I think it's just kind of naturally what you'd expect. I like that.
Yeah, I like that idea, but having what he's describing as a major plot point hidden behind this, that's what I call BS on. That's fucking stupid.
I think if you're going to have a game with normal difficulty, and then you're going to have hard difficulty, and you want to hide the major plot point or the true ending behind the hard difficulty, it's... why do you have the normal difficulty?
Right. And then you're like fucking most of your player base because they don't have, most of them don't have either the skill or the patience or the ridiculously good skilled raid group to, beat these raids on the hardest difficulty.
Yeah. And if it was like an MMORPG or it's like some other form of game, you're going to find this out from the community because it's a community-oriented game. That might be okay. You're like, oh, I didn't see this myself, but these other people did, and they told me about it because...
To an extent, but it's like, if they tell you about it, but you can't see it yourself because you're not a hardcore raiding player, that would be like kind of a swift kick in the nuts. I would be like pissed off if that was, because
Well,
as a raider,
it's-
when I was raiding in World of Warcraft, I had trouble getting through things on the normal difficulty because I wasn't part of a raiding guild. I didn't raid like regularly. I would like try and get a pickup group to do some raids every now and then if I had time that I could, I was like, whenever I was logged on, I'd be like, oh, hey, I need a group to try and go through this raid to get this item and try and beat the Lich King finally was my end goal. And I was like, I literally never beat the Lich King, even on normal difficulty, because playing like that as just a normal player, it was really hard to find a random group of players that were actually skilled enough to do that. And then to go beyond that, to have some like plot significant element hidden behind doing it on a harder difficulty is fucking retarded.
Yeah, and the only reason I think that might be acceptable in the game is you find out from other raiders, and eventually the plot point gets revealed anyway when the game updates.
My brother Josh in the chat is reminding us that our raid group had players that died during the roleplay before the boss fight. We were never destined for hardcore cutting-edge raiding, which was a fucking hilarious story. That we went... I don't remember what raid it was, but there's like this... you get up to the top of the tower, and the boss like does this big old monologue, and it's like a kind of a... Not a cutscene, because you're like still controlling your characters, but it's like a cutscene, right? You can move your guys around, and you can't attack the enemies until the actual fight officially starts. And just out of nowhere, we don't know if it glitched or what the hell happened, but the boss came up to our buddy Tyler, his character, and just fucking beat his ass and one-shot him. Because our buddy Tyler he was a DPS. He wasn't a tank. He didn't have the hit points, the armor to fucking take a hit from this guy. He just charged him out of nowhere in the middle of his fucking monologue, just killed him outright, and fucking kept on talking. And it's in the middle of the monologue, so we can't attack him. We can... because it's one of those things that's like the monologue event is still going on, so it doesn't let you attack him until the combat starts. And we're like, what the fuck? He just killed Tyler. But we're all just standing there.
Tyler.
Yeah, right? You know Tyler. That's exactly the kind of thing that would happen to Tyler. And somebody came up and fucking resurrected him and had enough time to resurrect him and heal him and buff him back up before that all... Yeah. Sourfang the Younger was the boss fight in Icecrown Citadel. 10-man was the raid. My brother's reminding me. I was like, I thought it was Icecrown, but I didn't remember the dude's name. Yeah, so that was fun times. R.I.P. Tyler. All right, do we have anything last to say on this topic here?
I think I'm about ending doubt.
All right. Well, since my brother asked for bagpipes last time he was in the live chat, and I forgot, I will give him an extra bagpipe tune today. So here's another bagpipe tune. There we go. All right. And now we can move into our final segment of the podcast, which is where we talk about inane bullshit until somebody says something really awkward and I cut off the podcast. So I did skip over my video games when we were talking about what you're playing, because I went into a character death that happened yesterday of my poor character, a bastard. That was his name. It was a bastard.
What? It was literally a bastard.
Yes, it was literally A bastard. Well, technically it was Sir Bastard. I started as a bastard, and then I was dubbed Sir Bastard by the Ratfolk Prince Agiz. Interesting, fun character. Yeah. Anyways, so, but I forgot to talk about video games because I've been playing a little more Shantae on Game Boy Color because I got that and it's cool. And it, like, I like it. It's one slight downfall is that checkpoints are far enough away from each other that I feel like, because I have it on Game Boy Color and I can't, like, just put it into sleep mode whenever I want, I have to, like, have enough time to get to the next checkpoint, right? Because it's not really checkpoints. It's like save points. There's hard save points, and if you die, you go back to, like, if you die, you have, like, 4 lives. So if you die, like, once, then you go back to the start of the area, but if you lose your last life, then you go back to the last save point you were at, but you do keep your progress, which is cool. So it's like, it's okay. I like the challenge, but it takes long enough that it's annoying because I can't just put it in sleep mode. So I regret a very tiny amount that I didn't buy it on Switch instead. But I've been having a good time with it, and I had, like, a weird epiphany that Shantae is proof that Zelda 2 could have been fucking great. Because Shantae is pretty fucking good. And it has a lot of similarities to Zelda 2, but I feel like everything is just done better. It feels more like a side-scrolling Zelda game than Zelda 2 does.
I mean, based on just the videos I've seen of, like, long play, yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah, because it's like the overworld is still in, like, your regular side-scrolly fashion. It doesn't have this weird shift between it. It doesn't, like, try and force RPG mechanics in where they don't really make sense and also don't actually help you. It's got heart containers. You actually have hearts. You didn't even have hearts in Zelda 2. You had little fucking boxes.
Hey, some people would pay good money to fuck a box.